Hello YouTube, this is Jacob T. Plant from Jacob the Plant, formerly Ninrocket, formerly Nintendo Rocket. Today I am starting a series, a 10-day series until New Year's, my life. So this is obviously going to be personal. I'm just going to be going through my life. I'm mainly making this for myself, just to archive all the things that happened in my life throughout this decade, but also for my friends and family who are interested too in going through the past years, um, starting with 2010, obviously. So, I started this decade off. I started this decade as a 10-year-old in fourth grade. I was probably like 4'4". I had no friends. I had a friend named Holden. Before that, we were close for a couple years. He started drifting away. He kind of became like a cool kid, you know. Um, and at this point, in fourth grade, at the start of 2010, I really had no friends. Um, like for real. And I was just beginning to get into Nintendo. For over a year, I was into PlayStation games mainly. That's what I started with, was a PlayStation 2. It wasn't until like October, a few months earlier in 2009, that we got a Nintendo Wii, thanks to my grandma. And that is what got me into the world of Nintendo. So, Nintendo was a new thing to me at this time. Gaming was still relatively new to my life. It's crazy. At this point, I really had no interest in music. I'll get to that. I didn't really get into music until like sixth grade. So I had no interest in music. What was I interested in? Um, so video games, pretty much. I was very into video games. I was always on YouTube watching like classic Game Room. I feel like that was my favorite. I used to love watching all those. Um, I would pretty much just watch video games about video game or videos about video games, or I would be playing video games, specifically PlayStation 2 or Wii or my dad's iPod Touch, because mobile gaming was just starting to blow up. Um, that's what I did. I had no friends. In fourth grade, I still am kind of introverted. I was extremely introverted at the start of this decade. I had no friends. Now, fast forward to now, and thank the Lord, I have multiple friends. I have a job. I'm in college. I'm more extroverted than introverted, really. And I have a great life, most of all. Thank you, Jesus. It's amazing how far I've come. I really owe it to God, how far He's brought me. Um, Mental illness, that's another topic. At the start of this decade, well, my mental illness, and as a fourth grader, it was mainly social anxiety. My depression wasn't that bad yet. Um, but that was forming. Um, so that's how I started. Compare that to now. Big difference. Um, when I think back to a decade ago, it's forever. That's so long ago. It's pretty much half my life. So yeah. First off, March 4th, 2010 is the first important date. Now, like I said, I was friendless. I had like no friends, and it pretty much stayed that way. March 4th. Now, to this day, I don't know if this is the exact day. March 4th, 2010. I think about a year into our friendship, I just kind of randomly estimated this. I think that is the day me and Patrick, our friendship started. Our lifelong friendship that's still going strong to this day. Thank you, Lord. My biggest friendship, honestly, in my whole life. Um, Me and Patrick were on a bus. We were on the bus. Now, it was usually me, my sister, and Patrick. We would sit together, but my sister and Patrick would usually be playing with Webkins or something, and I'd be sitting there very shy, too scared to say anything myself. It wasn't until one day that Jess was absent. my sister. So it was just me and Patrick sitting there kind of awkwardly. And to this day, I still don't know whether it was me or him because we were both shy, and Patrick was shy in a weird way too. Like, he's not exactly introverted, but he's kind of shy, you know, like he doesn't really speak that much unless he's being spoken to. Anyway, one of us spoke up. I like to say it's me, so we'll just say that, but I asked him the question. I was like, do you like video games? And little did I know, he was just as big of a video game as just as big as a video game fan as me. Now, it's crazy to believe how much society has changed in just a decade. But just 10 years ago, when I was in 4th grade, the majority of kids actually did not play video games. I'm not making this up. I was actually like a weird kind of outcast for being such a big video game fan. So to find another video game fan, especially one of Nintendo, just like me, in old school games, it blew my mind. And he was telling me, "Oh, I actually have a Nintendo 64. I have a Super Nintendo," and I couldn't believe it. I'd only seen those on videos. Like, I didn't expect a kid like my age at that time to actually have all that stuff. But sure enough, he did. And we just started talking all about that. And on that day on the bus, our friendship started. Um, so for the last few months of that school year, we just remained school friends. Like, we would talk on the bus, hang out at recess. I remember one of the first things I remember us doing was we like chased around girls, just because that's what kids did. You know, I mean, we didn't have, well, I might have had a crush on some of them, but I mean, we just for the fun of it, we were like chasing around girls with some other guys, 4th graders. So, yep. Then, and so that's pretty much what our friendship stayed as, just at school. It wasn't until the last day of school, the summer had arrived. I remember on the first day of summer, this must have been June 4th, 2010. I'm not sure about dates back then. I didn't really start recording dates mentally until like I was like 12. But anyways, I think that was the day, last day of 4th grade. For whatever reason, Patrick wasn't able to spend the night at my house that first night, but I was able to. We both got picked up from school together, and I got to go in his house for like 15 minutes, and he showed me. We played on like Super Mario All Stars, and he showed me all of his like old consoles, and I like my dad kept going like, "Come on, Jacob, let's go," and it was so hard for me to go. It was so cool seeing all his old stuff. I met his parents, and oh my gosh, it was awesome. Anyways, we ended up going home. It wasn't until the next day, the second day of the summer, Patrick spent his first night ever at my house. This must have been June 5th, 2010, I think. And thus began, to this day, still probably the best summer of my whole life. The Patrick summer, 2010. Really, it was just pure childhood bliss back then. It really was. Patrick was still 9 years old. That's crazy to think about now. He was only 9 years old when we were first friends. Not even double digits yet. And then I was like 11. So, let's see, my 11th birthday, June 24th, 2010. For my 11th birthday, I got an actual Nintendo 64. Alright, now, during the 4th grade school year, I started getting Nintendo eShop cards. eShop. Dang, I gotta think even before that. No, I'm talking the Wii Shop cards. And, the main game I got into was Super Mario 64. Oh my gosh, I played through that. I think it took me a few months to beat it. I beat it in March. I think I beat it in March. And then I got all 120 stars, I think, in May. I still remember to this day, my last star was the 100 coins in the TikTok clock. Oh my gosh. I remember it was so hard being a little kid like that. Nowadays, I did it again years later, and it was like easy, or at least it wasn't like hard as it was. But I remember it took me, first off, it took me a long time. Anyways, so yeah, and then I started getting into Ocarina of Time. Now I remember for a while, I always saw it in there. It like I'm pretty sure they had a list like most popular, and I saw Ocarina of Time at the top, and I was like, that looks boring. I mean, you gotta keep in mind I was like a 10-year-old, so Zelda games looked boring, but I decided to give it a chance. I'm so glad I did. So I got really into Ocarina of Time. This was going into the summer with Patrick. And then I got really into Majora's Mask. And that was fun too. Alright, so for my 11th birthday, I got a real Nintendo 64, which it was cool like as the novelty, but I remember it didn't really matter because I already had a Wii with all like the Nintendo 64 games on it. I got a DS Lite. That was a big thing. I got a DS Lite. No games to come to start with, so that was also kind of like eh. But the real big present, but the real big deal was Super Mario Galaxy 2. Now, ever since I found out about it, when I got into Nintendo, all through the second half of fourth grade, um, I was so looking forward to it. I was coming out, and on my 11th birthday, about a month after it came out, I got it. I was so happy, and that game really took up a big part of the whole rest of that summer. What was the other thing I was gonna talk about? Patrick. But yeah, okay, I remember one of the first nights um, with Patrick was into JoJo's birthday. It's crazy. JoJo was still a year old. Like the first few days, Patrick spent the night. It's crazy. But into her second birthday, I remember we like stayed up all night, and we ended up going in. I think we ended up going swimming. She just had a little party at home, and we were so tired because we stayed up all night. By the way, that's another thing that Patrick introduced in my life. Really, he's was staying up all night because never before in my entire life did I ever stay up past midnight. In fact, in that way, he was kind of a bad influence. Of course, I love Patrick, but he's the one who like introduced that to me. But it's crazy because my entire childhood up to that point, I don't even know if I ever stayed up past midnight that many times. But this whole summer, we just were consistently we would stay up till like 5 in the morning, sometimes all the way up until like noon the next day, then just sleep. This was the first time in my whole life that a sleep schedule really didn't matter. Day and night like didn't matter anymore. You know, pretty much every summer of my life's been like that since. You know, I'll just stay up whenever, go to sleep whenever. This was the first summer that that happened. Patrick really introduced me to that. Um, and I remember I had this really cheap, like probably $10 phone that we would just record messages on. We came up with Patrick English, like a bunch of random words. Boan, Aunt, Hent, Bert Duha. Um, oh my gosh. Such amazing times. And so then pretty much so the majority of that summer was spent, you know, me and Patrick playing on the Wii, playing his old games, watching YouTube. Uh, so YouTube, Patrick. Okay, so YTPs. Patrick showed got me into YTPs. Obviously, like if you know anything about YouTube, you know that YTPs were huge in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. We used to watch those all the time. We laughed at everything. I mean, we were the kind of kids who literally thought like everything was funny. We were constantly laughing. And he was one of my biggest influences. I mean, he was so silly, which influenced me to be silly. I was already like kind of a silly kid before, but Patrick like we really brought out each other's silliness, you know. And our sense of humor has always been like random and weird. And but yeah, so that summer was made up majority of like watching YTPs, playing games, just living the life of a kid. It was great. Um, So, like, all good things have to come to an end. And I think September 7th, 2010. I think, yeah, that must have been the first day of fifth grade. So, fifth grade started. It was very iffy. Oh, yeah. So, E3 2010 was. Alright. So, since I had the Wii now, I had the Nintendo channel, which showed all, like, the news. And E3 2010, that was my first E3. I was into video games the past couple years, but I didn't know about E3. It wasn't until, thanks to the Nintendo channel, they post all their, like, announcements from that E3. Specifically, the 3DS. And oh my gosh, guys. Like, the year leading up to the 3DS coming out, that's all I thought about. I was obsessed. I was so excited. You guys gotta remember, this was the start of the decade. I mean, the 3DS was actually like the future back then. It was like, oh my gosh, 3D with no glasses, that's so futuristic, that's so cool. And so I would always keep track of the news regarding it. Nintendo3DSnews.com. I don't even know if that site's still up. Ran by that Australian guy or whatever. But anyways, yeah. So in fifth grade, I made this journal. Oh my gosh, guys, I was so cringy. I was so cringy back then. I made this journal where I wrote down all the like 3DS news and stuff, and I pretty much made like a bunch of articles about the upcoming 3DS, and I would leave it open in class on my desk so that when other classes came in, they would see it too. Uh, oh my gosh. I mean, I cringe at that now, but yeah. Oh my gosh. So fifth grade, my life went downhill. Um, Depression. My depression was getting very bad. In fact, fifth grade is arguably my no, it was the entire school year. I suffered with depression very bad. I was suicidal at points. Um, and it was, I think it really was puberty. I mean, I have depression in general, but I think the puberty really made it worse. And as an 11-year-old, that's just such a hard time, really. Like, early stage of puberty, that's such a hard time for a kid. And thank you, Lord, that I'm here now, but those were hard times. Now, me and Patrick's friendship faltered too, because I don't blame Patrick for this. I was a very immature, cringy kid, and I caused drama. I started like arguments with him all the time. So even though we had a great friendship, I was bad in a lot of ways. I was a bad friend in many ways. So I can understand this, but Patrick really started like avoiding me. So he wouldn't even come over on weekends that much. I wouldn't see him at school because like at recess he would actually avoid me. If not, then he would have to stay in to work on homework because he did not do good with his grades. So I mean, we started throughout fifth grade. We didn't even hang out that much or see each other that much. So our friendship faltered. I was depressed. Meanwhile, at home, let's see. Oh yeah, I got super. No, I think that was 2011. Mario Kart DS. That was my first DS Lite game because I needed a game. I eventually got Mario Kart DS. I got really into that, playing it online specifically. To this day, online gaming is still like my favorite thing. I've always liked online games. In fact, that's right. Mario Kart. Mario Kart Wii. Wait, is it Mario Kart DS? I think that's my first online game that I owned ever. I think that's the first game ever I owned that was mainly played like with online gaming with other people, which is awesome. Mario Kart DS, so that was cool. I was really into Mario Kart DS, and I think that was actually at the first part of fifth grade. That's what I do at home. I'd check 3DS news, watch YouTube. That was pretty much it. And then Christmas. So Christmas 2010, I got my main present I got was Super Mario Sunshine. I ended up falling in love with that game. I miss it. I wish I could play it again. So I got Super Mario Sunshine, which was awesome. And that's pretty much it for 2010. So, yep, that's 2010. Feels like forever ago. But yeah, the main thing about that year was Patrick. I thank Lord for Patrick. That is the main thing of 2010, was that's when me and Patrick's friendship started, where it all began. But yep, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for my life in 2011.